Welcome to British Focus. Today, we delve into a controversy that has gripped Westminster and sent shockwaves throughout British political discourse. In an astonishing turn of events, King Charles himself extended a historic invitation to Donald Trump for a second state visit to the United Kingdom, and the reverberations have been nothing short of seismic. It is impossible not to question what such a gesture implies in these turbulent times and what it portends for the future of British diplomacy and political integrity. From the outset, one must ask, how could this invitation have been conceived without igniting a firestorm within the hallowed halls of Whitehall? For many, the act itself seems to be less a benign diplomatic overture and more an affront to democratic values. Labour ministers, known for their long-standing opposition to Trump's controversial policies, have expressed their dismay and outrage. They view the invitation as a blatant endorsement of a figure whose past actions and policies have consistently polarized both national and international opinion. As you listen, I invite you to ponder whether any nation can afford to be seen as legitimizing such divisiveness, particularly when the repercussions are felt on the global stage. One cannot overlook the sense of betrayal among senior Labour figures, who were caught entirely off guard by this diplomatic maneuver. Sources within Whitehall have revealed that many within the Labour Party consider this invitation to be nothing less than an insult to the very principles of democratic governance. For them, the decision represents a reckless gamble with the United Kingdom's reputation, one that jeopardizes the delicate balance of international relations. What is even more disconcerting is that the invitation was not delivered via the usual discreet, behind-the-scenes channels. Instead, it was personally handed over by none other than Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer. This unprecedented involvement of the Prime Minister has only deepened the suspicions that a rift may be growing between the Labour government and Buckingham Palace. A rift that, if left unaddressed, could have long-lasting ramifications. The King's rationale for this bold move was couched in the language of global necessity and mutual responsibility. He emphasized the crucial role that both the United Kingdom and the United States play on the world stage, hinting that in these trying times, their collaboration is indispensable. Yet, in doing so, he also made a rather pointed reference to Trump's frequent visits to his golf courses. Now, I ask you, dear audience, can we ignore the implications of such a remark? To many Labour ministers, this was not a neutral comment but rather an unwarranted concession to Trump's personal interests, an indication that his leisure pursuits were being prioritized over the gravitas of international diplomacy. In a time when the stakes are incredibly high, one must wonder if any public institution should be so cavalier in its gestures towards a figure who has repeatedly placed personal gain over public duty. Adding further fuel to the fire was the manner in which this invitation was made public. Traditionally, communications from the King have remained shrouded in the utmost confidentiality, reserved solely for diplomatic channels. Yet, in a stark departure from convention, Donald Trump himself exhibited the letter in the Oval Office. This public display was seen by many as an overt challenge, a signal, perhaps, that the norms of decorum and discretion had been abandoned in favor of an unrestrained pursuit of political capital. The letter, in which the King expressed his great appreciation for Trump's previous visits, only served to deepen the wounds of a political landscape already rife with protest and dissent. I can almost hear the voices of those who marched in the streets in 2019, their protests echoing with grievances over policies that many believe undermine the very fabric of our society. Policies on immigration, climate change, and human rights that have left scars that are yet to fully heal. The King did not stop there. In an even more contentious twist, he mentioned the possibility of Trump visiting Balmoral or Dumfries House in Scotland, properties steeped in royal heritage and symbolic of centuries of British tradition. For many, this was tantamount to the monarchy tacitly endorsing Trump's commercial ventures. The allusion to the Dumfries House Foundation, which provides hospitality training and often funnels its graduates into the service of Trump's own establishments, was seen by Labour ministers as an implicit nod to the business empire of a man whose financial dealings remain mired in controversy. It begs the question, should the royal institution, revered as a symbol of national unity and historical continuity, be drawn into the orbit of such partisan business interests? Moreover, the King's assurances that the visit would provide a forum for discussing issues of mutual interest and reinforcing the bilateral relationship between the UK and the US have done little to mollify his critics. Labour ministers warn that by granting Trump such an unprecedented honour, the monarchy is not only tarnishing its own reputation but also putting the United Kingdom at risk of being perceived as endorsing a divisive and self-serving political agenda. The reactions were swift and unequivocal. When Trump, in a display that could only be described as bombastic, lauded the invitation as a great honor and singled out the mention of Windsor as particularly significant, it was the final straw for many in Westminster. This overt celebration of a personal accolade, rather than a solemn duty to national service, has only served to inflame an already volatile situation. For those of us who hold dear the values of accountability and transparent governance, it is hard not to be deeply troubled by what appears to be a departure from the long-held traditions of British statecraft. One must ask, has the very essence of our diplomatic heritage been eroded in the face of political expediency? The fact that Donald Trump is now the first ex-president, and notably a convicted one, to receive not one but two state visit invitations from a British monarch, has sent ripples of disquiet through the corridors of power in Westminster. Many see this as setting a dangerous precedent, an act that could have far-reaching consequences for the integrity of our diplomatic engagements in future. Even Sky News, in its inquiry to Buckingham Palace, was met with the enigmatic response that the visit would occur when the agendas permit. Such a vague pronouncement does little to allay concerns. Indeed, it only stokes further speculation about whether this move is the harbinger of a more profound alignment between the monarchy and elements within the current administration. As you listen, consider the implications of this response. Is it a deliberate evasion meant to obscure the true motivations behind the invitation, or merely a symptom of the broader uncertainty that now clouds our political landscape? In our current moment of reflection, it is incumbent upon us to scrutinize these developments with a critical eye. One cannot help but feel that this controversy is emblematic of a wider crisis, one that sees traditional institutions, built on centuries of stability and decorum, being manipulated for partisan ends. The decision to extend this invitation to Donald Trump, a figure as polarizing as he is controversial, has not only exposed rifts within the governing establishment but has also raised profound questions about the future of British diplomacy. I invite you to engage with these ideas and reflect on the potential long-term ramifications. Are we witnessing the unraveling of a once sacred tradition of neutrality? Or is this merely a momentary lapse in judgment by an institution struggling to navigate an increasingly complex global landscape? The answers are not readily apparent, but what is clear is that the conversation has been set ablaze, and the implications will be felt far beyond the immediate political theatre of Westminster. In these turbulent times, the political landscape in the United Kingdom appears more uncertain than ever, and as we navigate through this maze of controversy, one cannot help but ask, what does the unfolding crisis mean for our future, and where does the responsibility lie? The current state of affairs centers on the disquieting role played by former US President Donald Trump and the pivotal part that Keir Starmer, the leader of the Labour Party, now finds himself forced to play. As questions mount about who will accompany Trump on his anticipated state visit, with whispers that his close ally, the magnate Elon Musk, may be included in his presidential entourage, we are compelled to scrutinize every decision made by those at the helm of our political establishment. Musk, currently advising Trump on federal spending, has been accused by many within the Labour ranks of further politicizing what should be an occasion reserved solely for dignified diplomatic engagement. For those of us who value the sanctity of British diplomatic tradition, this move appears not only as an unnecessary interference in state matters but as an overt attempt to weaponize such visits for partisan gain. Reflect for a moment on the last time Trump graced our shores in an official capacity. His previous state visit in 2019, hosted by the late Queen Elizabeth II, was a markedly different affair. It was conducted within a framework of formal, discreet meetings and protocols that have long been the backbone of US-UK relations. Traditional practice has dictated that presidents who have already experienced the honor of a state visit are thereafter limited to private audiences with the monarchy, an approach that preserved the dignity and neutrality of the crown. Yet, in a stunning departure from this well-worn path, Trump's latest overtures seem designed to shatter these conventions. In announcing his imminent return to the United Kingdom, Trump appears to be seeking not just to capitalize on the prestige of royal invitation, but to repurpose it as a platform for his own electoral ambitions. Many Labour members view this as a deliberate undermining of our cherished impartiality, suggesting that the monarchy has inadvertently become an unwitting pawn in a game of political one-upmanship. Adding further fuel to this already blazing fire is the matter of Trump's affinity for the Scottish Highlands. A stay at Balmoral, one of the nation's most emblematic royal residences, carries with it a historical and emotional weight that transcends mere protocol. It is well known that Trump's Scottish connections run deep. His mother, Marion MacLeod, hailed from the Isle of Lewis, and he has long maintained ownership of 2 golf courses in Scotland. This connection, however, raises difficult questions. Many critics argue that such a personal link, one steeped in heritage and sentiment, should not be exploited to serve political ends. The suggestion that Trump's visit could be used to promote his personal interests rather than the broader, more noble objectives of statecraft is a point of deep contention. One is left to wonder whether this is a case of historical legacy being sacrificed on the altar of political expediency. Meanwhile, the situation is further complicated by the practical realities faced by Buckingham Palace. Currently undergoing a lavish and extensive refurbishment valued at an astonishing £369 million, the palace is unlikely to be able to host any state visits for at least the next 2 years. This staggering expenditure on renovating the grandest staterooms casts a long shadow over the current diplomatic calendar. Some within the Labour Party have even whispered that the ongoing refurbishment should serve as a rationale for either postponing or outright cancelling Trump's visit. Such a proposal is not merely a logistical concern but a symbolic one, pointing to the idea that our national institutions are being manipulated and their very integrity compromised by decisions made high above the public eye. Amidst these mounting tensions, the crisis has grown ever more acute within Keir Starmer's own party. Once seen as a beacon of stability and a leader capable of steering Labour through challenging times, Starmer now finds his authority and credibility in serious doubt. The fallout from Trump's controversial invitation has only served to exacerbate an already fragile situation. His decision to engage with Trump on such unprecedented terms has been met with fierce criticism not only from his political adversaries but also from members within his own ranks. The crisis reached new heights with the unexpected resignation of Annalise Dodds, the then Minister of International Development, who publicly denounced Starmer's decision to slash the United Kingdom's foreign aid budget. Dodds argued passionately that such drastic cuts would inadvertently strengthen the influence of adversarial powers like Russia, thereby undermining the very essence of British international commitments. Her departure, the fourth minister to resign since Starmer assumed leadership last summer, stands as a stark testament to the deep fissures that now threaten to splinter the Labour Party from within. In her resignation letter, Dodds warned that the substantial reduction in aid not only jeopardized Britain's moral and humanitarian responsibilities but also rendered it impossible for Starmer to maintain his international obligations. For those who have been watching these events unfold, her words resonate as a clarion call to action, a reminder that political decisions made in haste or for short-term gain can have long-lasting and far-reaching consequences. It is as if the very foundation of our government's diplomatic standing is being chipped away, piece by piece, by policies that prioritize political expediency over principled governance. Now, as we stand on the precipice of what appears to be a profound crisis, one cannot help but feel a sense of apprehension about the future. Starmer, already beleaguered by internal dissent and external pressure, must now contend with a situation that threatens to unravel the delicate fabric of our international relationships. The invitation extended to Trump has sparked a storm of controversy that shows no signs of abating, and the challenge facing Starmer in the coming days is nothing short of monumental. His leadership, his decision-making, and ultimately, the future of his party all hang precariously in the balance as he grapples with the fallout from what many consider to be a catastrophic miscalculation. To all of you listening, I urge you to consider the implications of this political debacle. How does a leader navigate a crisis where traditional norms are discarded, and historical protocols are turned on their head? How can a party, once united by shared values and a common vision for the future, now find itself divided by actions that appear to be both reckless and self-serving? These are not merely abstract questions. They strike at the very heart of what it means to govern responsibly in a modern democracy. The inclusion of figures like Elon Musk in this delicate equation only serves to heighten the sense of unease, suggesting that the lines between statecraft and personal ambition are becoming increasingly blurred. As we reflect on these troubling developments, it is clear that the political landscape in the United Kingdom is undergoing a transformation, one that is fraught with peril and uncertainty. The actions of Keir Starmer, and the resulting fallout from Trump's invitation, serve as a stark reminder that leadership is not simply about making decisions, but about preserving the trust and integrity of the institutions that underpin our society. The pressure mounting on Starmer is immense, and the coming days will undoubtedly be a test of his ability to steer his party, and indeed the nation, through these treacherous waters. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into one of the most contentious episodes in recent British political history. Your engagement and willingness to scrutinize these critical issues are what drive our shared quest for a more accountable and transparent future. Farewell, and stay informed.